style of extreme metal that features distorted down-tuned guitars and palm muting for that extra kick. Also tremolo picked riffs, double kick drums with various forms of blast beats for aggression, chromatic guitar chord progressions. Vocals are guttural sounding. Often lyrical themes include violence, anti-religion, politics, and philosophy. Now we would like to know where this came from. How did it begin? Let's go to the early days. In the 1980s, bands started playing a heavier, more aggressive style of metal. Speed metal band Venom has to be noted as well, along with many other bands who were considered being a part of the first wave of black metal, as well as thrash metal legends Slayer, Dark Angel, Celtic Frost. And also including the German thrash scene bands like Creator, Destruction, and Sodom. Also the Brazilian thrash metalist Sarcophago and early Sepultura. These bands, especially Sarcophago and Sepultura, pushed the heaviness and aggression with unclean and unmelodic vocals along with chromatic riffs. This formula laid the foundation for what would later be called death metal. This term death metal was coined by Possessed, who had a song called Death Metal. But the first true band in the genre would be Death, led by Chuck Schuldiner, who has come to be known as the father of death metal.
I would have to say bands like Venom, who were out in 1980, I think Venom were really truly the first to do this really, actually, well, Motorhead also, because they were very raw and aggressive, but Venom, for this type of music, I think Venom would have to be one of the key bands, definitely.
Classic releases were spawned by Death, all the way from the debut Scream Bloody Gore to the Sound of Perseverance. Scream Bloody Gore is also seen as the first death metal record in essence. At the time, the scene in Tampa, Florida gave birth to an onslaught of death-inspired bands such as Morbid Angel, Deicide, and Obituary. While these were all in the US, over in Europe another scene was building with Carcass and Bolt Thrower, etc., who were influenced by the UK grindcore movement at the time. In the early 90s, death metal became much more popular and made its way across to the other countries. The Swedish death metal scene should also be of note. The scene got established around Gothenburg mostly and Stockholm. Bands such as Dismember, Unleashed, and Entombed. Bands also from the scene, At the Gates, Dark Tranquility, and In Flames, formed their own version of the style, which included the use of more melodic compositions, which seemed as almost a contrast to what was happening in the US. Also in Finland, another death metal scene spawned, with bands such as Amorphous Demolith, They incorporated off-kilter rhythms and had some doom characteristics. As time went on, more death metal genres spawned, notably brutal death metal. These bands wanted a more dense and heavier version of the almost completely thrash metal influence of earlier. They incorporated low-tuned guitars and atonal riffs, along with deeper guttural vocals. Bands such as Suffocation and Cryptopsy Another subgenre which was formed later on was technical death metal, which incorporates technical and very dynamic structures, kind of progressive in style. Bands such as Atheist, Cynic, and later records by Death. Later on, bands started incorporating even more styles within death metal, but let's leave it at that for now as a brief origin on death metal.